So now it's time to be able to edit some elements, edit some of those students. So how can I select a student? We could do something with the contextual menu. If we hold down, if we press and hold down with our fingers, it shows the contextual menu, and we know how to add a new menu here. We can add the new menu, and we can do something with it on the click. But that's some code that we already know. It's code that we know how to implement. So let's do something new. Let's do something like whenever someone just clicks, a fast click in the element. So if you just select the element with your finger, then we want to edit this element. Let's do something like this. Instead of holding down means delete. If you just select the item, I want to go and edit this item, edit this student. So let's go to our list of students, which is or the student list, sorry. It's here, get students list. So whenever we create the layout for the first time, we load the layout and create the view for the first time, I'm gonna get our students list, and I'm gonna say, okay, students list, please set on-click listener. So whenever someone clicks, I want to pass an on-click listener for you, on-click listener. And here I can do something. What can I do? I can say, oh, you selected, I can do a toast. You selected this element. Congratulations. And if I could write in English, it would be better. But congratulations. But hold on, I just received the view where it was clicked. I want to know the exact element where it was clicked. The view here is the students list, and then I don't know which element was clicked. So that's not the on-click listener that I want. No, that's not the one. That one is just to give me a generic idea of, okay, the list was clicked, whatever. I have no idea which element was clicked. No, that's not the one. Set on click, okay. Set on item click listener. Set on item click listener receives an on item click listener. And that guy receives the arguments that we want. He receives the parent. Who is the parent? The parent is the students list itself. In our case, it's the students list itself. So we know it's the students list in this case here. What else? The view is the item that was selected. It's the list item itself. So I'll just call it item, just to be clear that that's the item itself. And just to be clear that the parent is the student list, I'm going to call it the students list. Just to be clear, that's the students list, that's the item, that's the position that was selected, and that's the ID of the element that was selected if it has an ID. So in our case, what we want to do is discover the student that was selected. We know its position, we know the students list. So let's just ask the students list, get item at position, and returns to me the student, right? The student, just as we did before, we did it earlier. And it requires a cast. And there we have the selected student. If I have the selected student, I can just do a toast. So let's just do a toast, make text. Oh, let's go. That's the student list activity dot this. The sequence is student. Let's put the name of the student here. Get name. And let's do it a short one, which is toast dot short, length short, and let's show it. Show this guy for us. So let's show the text. Let's run our application to restart the application. Okay, if I just click quickly, so I just select it and it shows student Daniela Song. Let's just again, once again. Nice. Once again. Nice. So clicking on a specific item, that's how we do it with students list, with list view, with a list view component. Just notice one thing. I said that this is the students list. That's actually the view object where this method was invoked. Because this listener here, this anonymous object, this anonymous class, this anonymous object is only used for one list view, we are pretty sure that this is the one because it was used only for one guy. If this object here was set to a random variable, for example, v equals this thing, then we don't know anymore. Because this V could have been used for this student list, for another list, for another element, for several different elements. Then we don't know which one was the parent. Then the parent could be any of those where you applied this on-item click listener. So if you recycle on-item click listeners, or listeners in general, between several elements, it is true that you have less objects in the memory, but then this variable here becomes more important, because it might be one value for one element, another value for another element. In our case, we are using it as an anonymous class, so we are pretty sure that it's only used referenced once here, and it's being referenced by this element here, so we know it's this element, and that's why it worked. Nice, it worked. But as we can just click and run, can we do like the long click? Because actually, I don't know if you realize, but when I was typing here, I tried to type fast, but I couldn't. And there was another method, set on item long click listener. What is the long click listener? Let's see who is this guy. On item long click listener. And believe me, although they have a pretty much the same interface, just the name of the method differs a little bit, but it requires us to return true or false. We have seen this before. So let's see it in work, in action. Let me just copy this code here. And let me just print student long press. Rename this variable to the students list. This is the item, although we don't use it. And here's return true or false. I already said that if you return true, it means you have consumed this action. Nobody else that is listening will be invoked. If you return false, it means although you have done something, you might have done something, other listeners will be invoked. Let's stick with false by default, okay? Let me just save the code and run my application. Okay, let me do a fast click here, just select an item, student Daniela Song, that's pretty good. If I hold down, it shows remove, student long press. It shows both things, both this guy here and the contextual menu here. So it showed both of them. Why? Because first it showed the long click listener. That's the first one. Then the long click listener returns false, which means go ahead. If there's someone else listening, go ahead. And there was someone else listening. There was the context menu that also listens to long press. So it executed this code also. Hold on. What if this guy returns false? What is going to happen? If this guy lets other listeners listen to this selection, what is going to happen? Let's try it. So I'll hold down, and then we have remove, student long press, and that's it. We don't have anything else. Okay, but what happens now? So it's the same code, it's a different code, returning false here, but that's the result that we got. But what happens now if I change this thing here? If I remove the long click listener and try again. So I just stick to the context menu and the click listener, the fast click listener. So it's building. I'll hold down and it shows just the remove as expected. So if I keep the remove, if I keep the context menu and it returns false or true, it's just showing the context menu. But if I don't have a context menu, what happens if I don't have a context menu, but I have both the click listener and the long click listener? What happens in this case? Returning false, of course. So let's see. We'll see several combinations and then get the whole idea of what is happening. Let's hold down. Student long press. Nice. Student short press. So what is happening is, if you don't have a context menu, first, if you long press, it's going to invoke the long press, the long click. If you return false, then it's going to invoke the normal click, the item click. But if you have a context menu, instead of invoking the click, the generic click, it invokes the context menu, and that's it. The context menu doesn't allow you to go to the simple click here, as we did earlier. We tried to do this, it didn't work, it just went to the context menu. So first of all, long click listener. If the long click listener returns true, meaning don't run anyone else, it's the first one, that's who decides what's going to run. So let's see what happens if I do true here with the menu. So it shows student long press, but it doesn't show the context menu. So that's something that we need to be careful about. If you're using a combination of long press, short press, and context menu, if you have all of them, there is an order to those things. First of all, the long press is run only if you long press. So if you long press, the long press is invoked. If it returns false, if it returns true, that's it. Long press, nothing else. If it returns false, then it moves on to either the context menu, if it exists, otherwise the item click listener, if it exists, and that's it. Only one of those two. What about if I had no long press click listener? If I only had the context menu and the click listener, the simple click listener, then the long press will only execute the context menu, will not execute the item click listener. The item click listener will always run with a single click. That's something that you can be sure about. So when you're trying to combine all those things, be careful. In our case, we are only using this guy here, so I can remove the second one. And we're going to stick to the context menu for the delete option. So that's how we're playing our application. Just the set on item click listener to edit a student, and the context menu to remove a student. And that's what we're going to do next, to be able to add the student.